We are back live here on the Stingray Show. We hope everybody's doing well on this Tuesday afternoon. And as you can see back there behind me, I've got the Mississippi State Bulldog attire back there because we actually are going to be talking about the Bulldogs this week. Today, we're going to be talking with Tyson Lee, the former quarterback. And then on Friday, we're going to be talking with Vic Ballard. So this is going to be Mississippi State week only on the Stingray Show. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we take you back in time when Tyson Lee was the quarterback at Mississippi State, only on the Stingray Show.
The Dogs and Stingray are coming for you!
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Good afternoon, Mr. Feinbaum. Stingray here, and I'm about to shoot the bull with you like all the Auburn students do down at Auburn.
Worst defense ever!
So without further ado, here is the biggest Alabama going for the field goal. The kick is up. It is away. It is no good. Chris Davis bringing it out of the end zone. Oh, he's got blockers. Chris Davis up the sideline. Here he goes.
Here we go, guys. Dobbs back to pass. Launching the ball. Jennings, he's got it. Jennings, he's got it. Touchdown, Tennessee. They shocked the Dogs in Sanford Stadium. Are you kidding me? My God almighty, what an epic way for the Tennessee-Georgia rivalry to end this game. What a play. Wow.
Welcome inside another exciting edition of the Stingray Show, everybody. I am your host, Stephen Ray, and on the show today, we're going to have Tyson Lee, the former Mississippi State quarterback who was originally a walk-on under Sylvester Croom, and then played under Coach Mullen. So without further ado, now I do need to say before we start this interview, this was pre-recorded during the snow apocalypse a couple of weeks ago. So it is a very short interview because Tyson and Heath Hopkins, my co-host, wanted to go outside and play in the snow up there in Memphis because that's where both of them live. But we are going to be in different locations for this interview. But nonetheless, here is our interview with the one and only Tyson Lee of Mississippi State. Well, Heath, we are in different locations today because of the weather, unfortunately. But as you can see back here behind me, I've got the stadium, I've got a bunch of cowbells, and Davis Wade Stadium is illuminated. So we are talking Mississippi State, and obviously last week with the start of baseball season, we had two baseball players on, but now we're going back to college football, and we have a big-time Mississippi State player on the show today.
Yeah, Stephen, we, as some of you know, sometimes we do our shows live. Other times we pre-record the interviews and try to get things going. Today we're pre-recording an interview, and the snowpocalypse is among us. As the guy on the radio said, wintry death 2021.
Correct.
Here. So, as we speak, it is snowing, and it's fun. I'm getting ready to go play out in the snow when this is done with my kids, all four of them. But, but Stephen, I think you said it best. We're talking about college football. The college baseball season's off and going, but it's always time to talk about college football.
Absolutely. And the guy that we are talking about had a stellar JUCO career before signing with or walking on with Coach Croom and then playing for Coach Mullen. Ladies and gentlemen, the rock star himself, Tyson Lee. And real quick, Heath, what are some of your most memorable moments of Tyson there at Mississippi State that you can remember?
Oh, Tyson was very consistent. He was persistent.
Yes.
And I think that's what we're going to kind of get into with the interview is he was persistent at everything he did. And I think he was persistent on and off the field. And I think that's why so many State fans still endear him, love him, respect him.
Yes.
Because of his him being so persistent on things. But, he played on some teams that they lacked talent. And I think Tyson got beat up. I think I'm most impressed that he kept getting up because Tyson took some licks. There was some brutal times during those times, but he kept getting back up and he kept fighting and he kept taking the fight to him. And you have to respect somebody that always gets up and keeps going. It's hard to beat a man that won't give up, Stephen.
Absolutely. And real quick, you said that they lacked talent. However, he was on the team that Booby Anthony Dixon coined the phrase after the game, grinding for my state. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Tyson Lee. Tyson, how are you doing today, sir?
Stingray, good to see you again. I think I'm like Heath right now. I'm in my bedroom. I have 4 kids like Heath does. 2 are napping and 2 are watching TV. So y'all caught me at a good time. The snowpocalypse is out my window. And as soon as I finish, I'm going with my kids like Heath, and we're going to find some hills. We're going to sled on down.
That's awesome, my friend. So the last time I saw you, you were working at Mississippi State in the Bulldog Club. Are you still doing that?
No, I live in Memphis, Tennessee, specifically in Germantown, and I am an elementary school principal, and the name of our school is Evangelical Christian School. So I have 2-year-olds through 5th grade, and often people ask me, so what qualifies you to be an elementary school principal? I say, well, if I have a 6, 4, 3, and 1-year-old at home, do I at least get a chance?
Yeah.
And often they say yes. So 3 of my 4 kids are there with me, and it's been really good, Stingray. I have it's been 2 years. I'm in my 2nd year, and I guess it's been about that long since we've been able to talk.
Yes. Well, now is your wife still doing the bakery?
So Lovely Rolls, we began that in 2015, and it's still going. When we found out we were moving to Memphis, that's when we began thinking through some, I guess, new business strategies or pivoting as a business. And so Jubilation's Cheesecake, which is located in West Point, Mississippi, we've partnered with them, and they have been able to maintain our baking as well as freezing and getting them into grocery stores. So I love them just as much as I did 6 years ago. I just don't work as hard as I did 6 years ago. So that's a win-win for everybody. More so for my wife. She was really the workhorse. I was just the helper along the way.
Hey, Tyson, I don't think I've ever asked this question. How have you related football to what you do now as an elementary school principal? Are the hits harder?
Oh, man. I would say the only difference is rather than getting hit by 6'4", 260 that run a 4.4, they might be 3'2", 33 pounds running a 8'3". No, I often joke with people and tell them, outside of my faith, football has prepared me for anything that I've gone through in my life. My wife and I often talk about what football did for me, not just, 5, 10, 15 years ago when I was playing, but even now as a husband, as a father, as you mentioned, as a principal. And I think a lot of it is recognizing that things are never as bad as they seem. Part of being a principal is you're always the person people bring problems to. And although internally you may be going crazy or having some kind of dialogue, externally you try to remain as calm as possible. And I think that's one of the things that I learned when I was playing football is there's a lot going on in your mind and your heart. But when you're trying to be a good teammate, when you're trying to lead a team, as much as you can, you try not to let those emotions lead the way because there are many others who are following alongside you. But also I refer to my teachers as my team, and I legitimately believe that. I have skills and gifts that God has given me, and I think that they've equipped me to be in this role. But I also recognize, just like I did when I played football, if I don't have somebody to block, somebody to catch, we won't move the ball very far. And so I think that team approach is what I've brought to this current work environment. And I think a lot of my teachers would say that I value them and see them as a necessity for us to do and to be who we want to be as a school.
Wow. Hey, a quick fun question. What do you miss most about football?
Oh, man, the free food. Come on. I mean, not the fall, the food. You know, it's funny now. You know what? We're in 2021. It was only 12 years ago when I was playing, not long.
Right.
And things have changed so much in college athletics, even in 12 years. You know,
Oh, yes.
now they have
that SEC money.
Oh, man, it is.
The network
I remember,
money. Yeah.
you know, Stingray mentioned earlier, last time we spoke, I was with Mississippi State University and the Bulldog Club. And I remember walking around to different facilities and seeing all the food and the snacks. And when I played, we had a Gatorade when you got done. And the best part of all, they used to have Gatorade chocolate and vanilla and strawberry milkshakes. And you would get one after a workout, and you thought you were in heaven. And so now, man, they get anything they want all day. So to say I'm jealous would be an understatement.
You know, the funny thing is the guys that probably played back in the 90s and 80s, they got water.
That's what I want to tell.
We got water and air.
That's what I want to tell some of these college athletes now is, hey, just know how bad it could be. You know, they could tell you, hey, we're not able to feed you, but as long as you make it to the cafeteria by 7:52 so that you can make it to your 8 a.m. class, I don't mind, but you better not be late for class. So those are many of the stories that I remember of finishing up an early morning workout and trying to make it to class and not cramping along the way. Is making sure you got something to eat, because you're probably going to have to go back to the facility after lunch. And if I wasn't hydrated and I had not eaten, the afternoon part of the workout would probably whoop my tail.
Hey, speaking of, I'm going to follow up with that.
Yeah.
Workouts. Going from Coach Kroom and the off-season workouts to Coach Mullen, was that just a massive turnover as far as the workouts went?
Yeah, so two completely different philosophies in the weight room. You know, Coach Mullen and Coach Kroom had different philosophies just in coaching and how they operate with their personnel, as play calling, and really all that they did as coaches. But Matt Bayless was the strength coach that Coach Mullen brought in with him. Coach Bayless had been with him at Utah, then Bowling Green, and then Florida, and then went to Virginia. And then when Coach Mullen got the job at Mississippi State, Coach Bayless came. And I was actually telling somebody this story a few weeks ago. I knew Coach Bayless was a different human being when I walked into his office, very first time I had seen him, and he says, hey, well, in his voice, hey, go get on the bike, level 18 for 20 minutes. And just to give you some context, I had probably only been on a stationary bike once or twice, and that was on level 2 or 3. Let's just say level 18. I could tell in the first 3 seconds that this was going to be miserable, and nothing changed for the rest of the year. No, Coach Bayless, have the utmost respect for Matt Bayless. He's now at Notre Dame. He's bounced around. He's been at UConn. But I will tell you what Matt Bayless did for Mississippi State football. But personally, what Matt Bayless did for me, he taught me that really it's mind over matter. When you think you can't, there's a lot left in the tank. And I'll tell you, that still impacts me today as a husband, a dad, and as a principal.
Hmm.
Well, let's go on and talk about your playing days for just a second. Or let's continue with your playing days. If somebody said to you, most exciting, crazy game you ever played in, which one would that be?
Oh, man. Well, unfortunately, we were not very good. I think I went 4-8 my junior year and 5-7 my senior year. I will tell you, I had some really good teammates, though. Many of those guys were able to play post-college in the NFL, KJ Wright being one, who I would say is probably, he and Pernell McPhee have maintained the longest NFL career of any teammates that I've had. If I were to say the craziest, those great, wonderful Mississippi State fans remember a game in 2009. We're playing LSU Tigers at home, and I'm inside the 5, and we have 4 downs to get it in the end zone. The last play of the game, 49 dive option to the left. All I had to do was pitch it, Stingray. If I pitch it, not only does Anthony Booby Dixon walk in, he may do a flip in the end zone and nobody touch him. But I thought I could get in. And I'm about this short. And if I could take my iPad downstairs, you would see a picture of me getting stopped on the goal line against LSU in my living room. And it's interesting because it was a learning opportunity for me. Was it a failure? Absolutely. Do Mississippi State fans still hate me? Yes, they do. Forgive me. And just know if I could do it all again, I would pitch the ball. And if you were to get Anthony on here, Anthony would say, or Booby as we know him, Booby would tell you that Tyson should have pitched the ball and we would have won the game. He may say it a little bit better than me. But no, it was exciting because I remember the drive working down the field. We got the ball probably on our own 30-ish, a little less than 2:25 left in the game. Moved the ball down. Christian Ducree had a few big runs. First ball I gave to Anthony. Second, play action, try to give a pass to Marcus Green. I think his name was Chad Jones. He had a big car wreck for LSU. He was a football, baseball player. He tipped it.
Yeah, he did.
And then third down, we gave it back to Booby. And then fourth down came up a little bit short. So exciting, but also devastating all at the same time, Stingray.
Tyson, I've got to ask, on that very specific play, on that fourth down, obviously I heard you. You didn't pitch it because you thought you could make it.
Yep.
But what went through your mind? I mean, what was the first thing?
Oh, man.
What went through your mind when you didn't make it?
Can I just stay here in this huddle and nobody see me? It was 49 dive option. And the reason I remembered, I've told the story to many a times because people ask often, biggest successes, biggest failures. What I remember is how quickly that play developed. And so essentially, I won't bore you with the details, but the details are you read the end man on the line of scrimmage, and if his shoulder is upfield, meaning flat, you go in, and if he turns it, you pitch it. Well, I don't think I expected it to happen so quickly, and when he closed really quick, if I had pitched it, he would have walked in, but it happened so quickly that I failed to make the right decision. And so I remember, it was one of those, maybe if I was Chris Ralph who came after me, or even Tyler Russell, or there's another guy named Dak Prescott. I don't know if anybody's heard of him, but pretty sure if one of them had the ball, they probably would have made it in. But I just didn't have enough behind me to get in. And so I ended up being about 6 inches short, Heath.
Wow. Well, Tyson, I've been a season ticket holder for many ages now. I'm a 01 graduate. I graduated in 01. Should have graduated in 98. That's another story. It's really fun, too. But, I've seen a lot of games. I'm still there no matter what the record is. I still show. But I remember that game. And the one thing that sticks out to me in that game is we had that such incredible drive on the ground, that last drive against LSU, as you were talking about. We kept it on the ground. We were moving. And then it was like once we got to the 5-yard line. All right, but yeah, we get down there, and Chad Jones made that crazy, incredible play. Marcus Green was wide open. It was a great pass. He just made a freak play, and his fingertips barely got on that ball to knock it away. But my whole thing was, my thinking, and you can correct me because your football knowledge is tons better than mine because, hey, I'm a season ticket holder. There's a reason why I'm in the stands and you guys are on the field. I know my role. But my whole thinking was we just went down the whole length of the field, and here we are. And if I'm not mistaken, we were inside the 2-yard line. We got 2 plays to punch it in. why didn't we just keep it on the ground? And that's still, and I put that on Mullen. I'm not calling him out or anything like that. I was just like, we just went down the entire length of the field, basically on the ground.
Oh, we
2
did.
last plays, and you get the best running back the school's ever had in Boobie Dixon in the backfield. We got 2 shots to give it to him to get in. We went 0 for 2 on the last 2 plays of giving it to him to score on that last drive. What were your thoughts on that, on those last 2 plays?
You know, when you're in the heat of the moment, Heath, I guess you don't have much time to think.
You don't?
I think, well, one, you're moving the ball all the way down the field. The assumption at that time, LSU has just always had a fabulous defense, not only kind of DB University, but they've produced some really good defensive linemen. And so I think once you get inside that 5, sometimes you try to outthink them, meaning, they're going to send everybody and crowd the box. And so if we can just – and if we're, taking, a talent – LSU's defense versus our offense, it was surprising the way we were able to methodically move the ball down the field really so easily. I remember Dupree not only had a great run, but really kind of broke 2 or 3 tackles. And so I think maybe at that point we had them on their heels. We gave it to Boobie first down, and I think it was one of those, let's see if we can just sneak behind them. But as you said, Chad Jones, who also in that game, if you don't remember, had a punt return for a touchdown for about 90-plus yards. But as one of the all-time greats said, big-time playmakers make big-time plays in big-time games. And so at the time, I think what happened was their playmakers made plays, and I did not. And so, no, it's one of those where even 12 years later, it still stings. The only difference now is I'm old enough and mature enough to maybe not linger on it too much, but to say that I would not have enjoyed that win and that pitch would be might be the understatement of 2021 so far.
Tyson, since it's a bad memory, I won't harp on it, and I'm sorry that we brought it up. But what have you learned from that? You said you've got a picture of that. Is that for daily motivation? Do you walk by that to remind yourself daily of, hey, I need to do this. I need to approach life like this. What's the point of the picture? No,
great question, Heath. So I would say it's probably pretty multifaceted. And what I mean by that was one of those, I've always been one to work extremely hard in everything that I've done. I think if you were to ask any of my teammates or any of my coaches, they would be the first to tell you I was never the fastest, the biggest, the strongest, or the best. I think they would tell you I was an average athlete, but I think all of them would say I was an average athlete with an excellent work ethic. And so what I've learned from that, it depends on the day and it depends on the season that I'm in. A few that I've taken, you never know when an opportunity will come. So when it comes, take advantage. We practice that play all the time. And when I had the chance to do it on the field, I did not perform it to execution. Therefore, we lost. Another one is failure will happen. How do you respond? Another one, all joking aside, 55,000 Mississippi State plus fans that day were very upset, and rightfully so. But then also those 55,000 fans are called fans for a reason, right? They're fanatics, and they have high highs and low lows. And so I think it was a reminder to me that the world is fickle. And, as I mentioned earlier in the show, my faith has always been, I say always, since the age of 16 when it became my own, has been a foundational piece to my life. And so I think I had to lean into who I believed in, which is Jesus Christ at the time, for validation. And really, as I mentioned, it's 12 years later, those things don't just leave you. But when you're, 20, 21, and you realize that you could have changed the outcome of that game, that's something to work through. The last thing I'll say, Heath, is I leave it up because there are many people who are in our home and they ask about it. And it's a great opportunity for me to share with them that life's got highs, life has lows. It's not the highs and lows that make life, it's how you respond to it, because often you're not able to control it. But when you can, do the best you can. So a lot tied into that one picture. I guess it just depends on the day and who who sees it dictates what that conversation might be.
Wow. Well, Tyson, you have apologized. I don't know if any Mississippi State fan has accepted your apology. I will happily accept it so we can all move on.
Well, it's all good. I have a former. He's older than me. Every time I talk to him, literally every time, his last words to me are, "You still should have pitched it." So, just know. I'll say this, and at the time, Coach Muller was my coach. Running backs coach was Greg Knox, and offensive line coach was John Hevesy. All of those are now at the University of Florida. I don't know that they would agree or like it, but I did tell them that I helped their careers out, because if we had won that game, they may have split it a lot sooner, because they would have been rising in their coaching profession too quickly.
Right.
So you're always trying to find the silver lining. So I told Coach Hevesy one day, "Hey, I know you don't like me. I know you're mad at me, but just know you owe some of your career to my blunder." So if you ever see John Hevesy, ask him and see what he says.
I will do that the next time.
Well, I want to ask one last question about that play.
Yeah.
What did Coach Mullen say to you after that play?
Nothing.
Okay.
Wow. No, here's the thing, though. All joking aside, there's nothing that needs to be said. It's one of those where everybody knows. I know, the team knows, the coaches know that I did not do what I should have done. But I also think in the moment, a great coach, and Coach Mullen is a great coach. A great coach knows that my intent was to win that football game. My intent was to get in the end zone. My intent was to make the best decision at that time. And as mad, disappointed, frustrated, whatever word you would use there, I don't think any of those coaches would have argued that Tyson was not trying his best. Now, we all know that trying and succeeding don't always come together. But I think it was pretty evident to everyone, myself included, as well as all the coaches, that I did not do what needed to be done. And I think the weight of the moment, if you will, said enough. And honestly, I don't even know if we watched film. I don't know if it was ever referred to again. But if you're a Mississippi State fan and you're older than 12, when you say LSU inside the 5, Tyson Lee pitch, I think everybody has a little bit of an understanding of what you're referring to.
Tyson, who was the first person that picked you up after that play? Who was the first person that?
It probably would have been J.C. Brignoni, my center, or Quentin Salisbury. They were the big boys, either out on top of me or under me. And, in this conversation, Heath and Stingray, it's, as we talked about before, you never know how these conversations will go or what will come up. But what I can say, what I always tried to do, I wanted to make my teammates better. When we were working out, when we were watching film, I did the best that I could to make them better. And I honestly believe in moments of utter failure, if you will, the 10, 11 months prior to that you put into it, it sometimes helps the moment not be as devastating. And what I mean by that is people knew that I was the shortest and maybe the slowest of all quarterbacks on our roster. But I think if you asked any of my teammates, they would tell you I had the heart of a lion. And that's not something that I would say. I think that's something that they would say. And they were probably more upset for me as a person than they were us as a team, because they knew how much I would wear that myself. Mm-hmm. For what it's worth, I still have dreams about football and missing workouts. And my wife tells me often, football messed you up. And I said, maybe.
Tyson, you're bringing up questions I don't even have to ask. There's a couple of questions I want to bring up. If you brought them up, I've never had an interview like this. But you talked about your teammates talking about, you weren't the tallest guy. Jack Crystal had a very funny call about you. That I think it was a third down play. You kept it. You reached out. You're smiling, so you know where I'm going with it. But you reached out. You fell short, and of course, my terrible Jack Crystal impersonation. Tyson Lee reaches the ball out, falls just short, but that's the story of his life.
Oh man, I didn't know that. Oh, rest in peace, Jack Crystal.
Wow, you didn't know that.
No, but there's probably a storyline to go with that. I would say I've always been somewhat of the underdog, and
right.
There have been, you're the underdog for a reason, and it's been good for me. I think now as a parent and even as a husband or as a principal, the underdog just creates these tendencies, these habits, these ideas, expectations that you have that I think can impact you when you get done playing. And that's one of the passions, if you will, of mine. That word is loosely, is tossed around pretty loosely now, but whenever a lot of athletes get done playing college sports or professional sports, they can struggle with that transition into life after sports. And I think when you're the underdog, when you're a walk-on, and going back to the GOAT, the legend, Jack Crystal, for him to say it's always been that way, I think he's right. And I think in many ways I've responded to that out of necessity. And it's given me tools, and it's built me into who I am now. And I think it's also allowed for me to understand the top dogs, the 5-star recruits, as well as the 1-stars that nobody sees. And I would tell you, in my career and even now, one of the things that I've been able to do that I'm super grateful for, and I've seen the Lord work in my life, is the ability to relate to people on both sides of the tracks. And that's one of the quality, skills, talents, if you will, that has remained since I've played. And I think that as a father now, that's something that I hope that my kids will see, is both sides of the track are important.
Hey, real quick, Tyson, a small follow-up to Jack Crystal. He was he was there very late in his years. You might have played on the last team where he announced the games, but he was a crotchety old man at that time. A lot of people who don't know Jack, he told a lot of dirty jokes. He was just a crotchety old man.
Yeah.
What is your favorite Jack Crystal story that you can share with us?
Oh man! Now that I know what he said about me, no. So you'll have to ask Bart Gregory. You know Bart, right?
Yeah.
So Bart, I think next to Jack Crystal giving me a hard time, Bart Gregory might be next. So bring Bart on here and have Bart. Let Bart tell you a few stories about Jack Crystal or me. I'll tune in. Bart and I worked together for a couple of years, and so I like to give him a hard time. So if you ever have him on the show, you just ask him about the time I asked to borrow his chainsaw, and rather than letting me use it, he decided that he would try to do it himself. And let's just say about 15 minutes later, he thought he was going to pass out. I thought he was going to throw up. And to this day, it will be, and it is, one of the best memories I have of Bart Gregory.
That's hilarious. Bart, I heard Bart Gregory tell the story. Now, I've never met Bart. I know who Bart is. But I heard Bart Gregory tell a story this past year about, I want to say it was after the Missouri game, and he was talking about Tim Tebow wouldn't let him on the elevator, and he ranted and raved about that. And I don't know how many years ago that was, but he was still complaining about it on the post-game show. You know this story, don't you?
I don't, but I want Bart Gregory on here, and you ask him about that tree in my. If he says anything negative about me, which he will, you ask him about that tree in my backyard, and then we'll call it even.
Stephen, we might have to do like an April Fool's Day show with Bart and Tyson. And just let them go back and forth. We just sit back and watch.
Sign me up.
Well, we've talked about a game that you lost. Let's go to one that you guys actually won, and it was a big-time win for you guys because you won on the road, and your teammate coined the phrase, grinding for my state. Talk about that game up at Kentucky under the lights, in that game where Boobie Dixon ultimately went off.
He did. I think he ran for 252, and we ran the counter more than anybody should be able to run the counter. Derek Sherrod was one of our tackles at the time. Derek ended up breaking his leg, but played in the league for a little bit. No, I remember, well, Kentucky's just a beautiful stadium. It was a night game. It was cold. At the time, O'Neal Wilder was one of our receivers, and so I hit him on a deep post after a fake speed option, and then threw it to him. And then also I remember, it's crazy. You kind of have these flashbacks. Christian Dupree on a seam route caught one over his head and hurt his knee that game. So, but no, what was really neat about that game is Anthony Boobie Dixon. I haven't played ball a long time. I played for a while. I was around a lot of great players. I don't know if I was ever around anybody as enthusiastic as Boobie Dixon. One of the things about football is it's rough. It's 12 months a year. But when Boobie came, he came. And that's one of my favorite things about him. A lot of people see him as just kind of a fun Mississippi State guru now. But I used to see Boobie at practice and at games just love football. And that's rare. One of the, maybe not one, but oftentimes once you get to college football, it is a business. It really is a job. So when you see guys who have joy and they still bring a little bit of fun, it's really refreshing. And I will tell you, that night when he repped grinding for my state, it was quintessential Boobie Dixon. And just a guy that I still have so much respect for as a football player, a guy who set records at Mississippi State. But more than that, I really believe that, he came in with that Coach Croom class and really laid a strong foundation so that guys after him, Ladarius Perkins, and just many other guys after him had opportunities, and I think Boobie really did pave the way for those guys.
You had talked about Boobie Dixon being a phenomenal player. Let's talk about another phenomenal run that he made there in the home game earlier that year against Houston. Can you talk about what that was like, where he literally drug like two defenders over the goal line?
Yeah, Boobie, not only was he just a great athlete,
right,
but he was competitive. That's another thing. You're 6'2", 6'3", depending on what time of the year. He may be 220 or 250. But he ran hard. And I remember that play. He had bounced it back to, it might have been counter again, and I was carrying out the fake. And he went all the way down the field. And once that train gets rolling, it's hard to slow down. And I think once he saw that he was inside the 10, he would not be stopped. And at that point, I just thought I'd give him a little bit of a push. If you see that replay, I caught up to him, not because I'm fast, but because there were two people on his back. And I was able to maybe give a little bit of a push to push him into the end zone. But no, I think that really is one of those runs that'll go down historically for Mississippi State and for him, not only because of the length of the run, but just the tenacity in which he finished the run. But I think that was one of those memories that you think back to and you're like, man, Boobie Dixon right there.
Right. Well, and another big game that year that y'all unfortunately lost, but you had your best passing performance. I think it was 272 yards was against the Ramblin' Wreck of Georgia Tech. Talk about that performance where you only missed 10 throws. You were 20 of 30 in that ball game.
Yeah, that year, 2009, I want to say that we had maybe top 3 ranked schedule in the country. We played Houston that year. They were ranked. We played Georgia Tech that year. They were ranked. Not only were they ranked, but maybe top 15 at the time when we played them. And I just remember we had done some wing tee stuff. Georgia Tech ran the wing tee, and we had practiced all week. Hey, well, here's one of my boys. What do you know? Can you introduce yourself?
Hi.
Hey.
Can you tell them your name?
No.
Well, that's life as a parent. That's life as a principal. And that's life as a quarterback. You just have to be ready at all times for anything that may come.
Yes.
A blitzing linebacker, a blitzing safety, or a corner coming from the backside that you don't even see, right?
Right.
But no, last thing I will say, because they are ready to go sledding, and so I want to go and do that. That game against Georgia Tech, I remember, when you're playing a team like Georgia Tech, they don't get a lot of practice during the week against a normal offense because their offense plays such a different style of offense. And one of Coach Mullen's greatest qualities, I think, that he's had since he's been in coaching is always trying to exploit your weaknesses and finding out ways that we have strengths and you don't, or finding the players or the personnel to try to find the matchups that we can be on the winning side of. In that game, Leon Berry, Brandon McCray, I don't remember who all threw to, probably Arnell Stallworth, some of those guys, finding the mismatches, even as 4, 5, 6 yard pass, and let them get the yak yards, the yards after catch, or yards after contact for another 10 or 15, or often the yards that you don't see in a play, but they see a 25-yard pass, but they forget Tyson threw it for 6 and they ran for 19. But those mismatches and the ways that Coach Mullen finds those mismatches in game planning was probably one of the reasons for I went 20 for 30. And another reason is just throw the ball to people so they can catch it, and you're usually better off.
Tyson, you played with Coach Kroom and Coach Mullen. What's your favorite Dan Mullen story, and what's your favorite Coach Kroom story?
Oh, man. Coach Kroom brought me into his office in the spring of it was actually the spring of 08, after I had walked on in January, and he brought me into the coach's office and said, "Hey, Tyson, I want to discuss something with you." Had no clue what it was. I said, "Yes, sir, Coach." He said, "Hey, I appreciate all your effort. You've done a lot of hard work for us, but it's just not going to be a fit." And after he said that, he gave a quick smile and offered me a scholarship. So that was the Coach Kroom story. The Coach Mullen story, I have quite a few. This will have to be my last one, Heath and Stingray, and I'll have to jump off. We can do it again another time. 2 things. The first one was Coach Mullen, the very first time I met him, says, "Do you know what a leader is?" I said no, because I didn't want to say yes and have the wrong definition for leader. So I said, "No, sir." He said, "A leader is they set a standard, and rather than making others, rather than stooping down to their level, you make them rise up to yours." And that's something that has always stuck with me, is leadership is causing other people around you to become better and raise the standard. And the second thing is, DJ Looney passed away last year or 2 years ago. DJ was one of my centers, and DJ was a second string at the time. And I never will forget, DJ didn't know some of the play calls. And so we had these code words for play calls. And so I was trying to help DJ out by calling a play. And rather than giving the code word, I gave the actual play. And Coach Mullen, in only the ways that he could, told me that my career was over. I could put on a headset, and he appreciated all my efforts. And so I made my way to the sidelines, put my headset on, and about 5 minutes later, he asked me to come back in. So there it was.
Wow. Well, Tyson, we won't keep you too much longer. Try to enjoy the snowpocalypse.
I will. I don't have 4-wheel drive, so I have somebody here picking me up, and we're going to take my kids to a hill, but I'd love to do it again. You, Heath, or Stingray, feel free to reach out, and we'll find another time. Appreciate you having me on, and hopefully you've enjoyed it, and your listeners will as well.
And we might surprise you with Bart Gregory, too.
I can't wait for that one. I'll get ready for it.
Thank you, man. And Hail State.
Hail State, thanks.
All right.
Thanks, Heath.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for the interview there with Tyson. And unfortunately, he had to go because of the kids.
Yeah, dad duties.
Yes. You know all about that, don't you, my friend?
Yes. Having 4 kids, I love the joke that the stand-up comic once said. He said that, what's it like having 4 kids? He said, well, it's like drowning and then someone hands you a baby. And that's exactly what 4 kids is like.
Well, maybe we stayed too much on the LSU one, and he had to go. I mean, you never know. Maybe we ticked him off by bringing up the LSU game too much.
Actually, he brought it up.
Well, that does still sting with a lot of Mississippi State fans to this day.
Yeah, and for anybody that's still holding on to that, I'm sorry, but Tyson Lee did more than just about everybody did on the planet at that time to win that game.
Yes,
and things don't work out, but again. I think what Tyson said, I've never thought about this, but he's probably right. If Dan Mullen wins that game, he probably wins the Houston game. Dan Mullen should have won the Houston game that first year anyway, his first season in Starkville. Dan Mullen has a winning record. Dan Mullen's probably hired by somebody else after 1 year in Starkville. And there's no Dak Prescott. There's no number one in the country. There's no Orange Bowl. There's no any of those things. Getting the first win in the state of Arkansas and all the other things that they did over the years. The 55-20 game, I meant there in Oxford in the Egg Bowl, all those things would probably be gone and would have never happened. So do I believe in the philosophy of you got to take a step back to move a couple of steps forward? Yeah. And Tyson, hey, someone had to take the step back. I give him all the credit for everything going forward.
Absolutely. And on one final note, no Dak Prescott, no Dan Mullen, no Stingray. I'm just saying, no Stingray show either.
And no Stingray show. We should put Tyson on the show now. He's like the executive producer. I think that will be his title now, our executive producer, Tyson Lee.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, Steven.
And we are back live. We hope you have enjoyed our interview with Tyson Lee. Now, of course, on Friday, we will be joined by Vic Ballard from Mississippi State, who was just a little bit later than Tyson Lee. But I do want to also mention this. For any Alabama baseball fans, let me go ahead and throw that up there. Alabama has a game tonight at the Joe at 6 o'clock, and it will be televised on the SEC network. They are playing or going against South Alabama tonight at the Joe at 6 o'clock, and then tomorrow night they are playing against Jacksonville State. So there are two games tonight and tomorrow night for Alabama baseball, and then this weekend they are home as well, playing Stetson for a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday matchup before we get into SEC baseball play. So once again, tonight at the Joe, Alabama hosts South Alabama. They're at the Joe on Tuesday night at 6 p.m. It should be a great game, and I'm actually going to that game tonight. I will have updates on my social media accounts, but we hope you guys have enjoyed the Stingray Show, and once again, we will be back here on Friday this week talking with Mississippi State great Vic Ballard. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and as always, God bless.
The Dogs and Stingray are coming for you!
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Good afternoon, Mr. Feinbaum. Stingray here, and I'm about to shoot the bull with you like all the Auburn students do down at Auburn.
Worst defense ever!
So without further ado, here is the biggest. Alabama going for the field goal. The kick is up. It is away. It is no good. Chris Davis bringing it out of the end zone. Oh, he's got blockers. Chris Davis up the sideline. Here he goes.
Here we go, guys. Dobbs back to pass, launching the ball. Jennings, he's got it. Jennings, he's got it. Touchdown, Tennessee. They shocked the Dogs in Sanford Stadium. Are you kidding me? My God almighty, what an epic way for the Tennessee-Georgia rivalry